What's up, y'all? Welcome to another late night, mid morning episode of Believe in Kentucky. Our longtime listeners know we did this before. Aaron Gershon and I, when John Calipari made his way to Fayetteville, Arkansas. And here we are again as Mark Stoops in Kentucky have parted ways. He's being let go uh, as morning gets here later today. It'll be official. Jeff Drummond, friend of the show, kind of one of the first ones to report it. Cole and I will be on with more uh, content later on in the days and weeks coming up about this. But it, was this a possibility? We've all been wondering. We've all seen the state of the program for quite some time. We all just saw what happened Saturday at Louisville. You got the feeling for a while that the coaching carousel has been hot, starting with what James Franklin, Sam Pittman guys getting let go mid-season. Got the feeling, Kentucky's not trying to jump in that, and all the SEC openings, you know, higher profile jobs, LSU, Arkansas, Florida, Auburn, all this. Kentucky trying to jump in and try to get in a coach now, and thought running it back with Stoops. And a lot of people didn't want that. And you saw old boy Brandon Walker talking about, Kentucky's stuck with a coach that they don't want. He's laughing at him, talking about I'm not going anywhere, zero chance I lead, the whole thing with the post game presser. And we went from kind of all of that to the move is made to he's going to part ways. Looks like the language with the contract which was insane, that he was due his buyout within 60 days. Gonna work with that and maybe spread that thing out to where you don't just have to pony up immediately. And so that was maybe one of the big negotiating chips. And once that got resolved, now they're able to go about the business of parting ways. Um, if you think back to when Marshall Stoops first got here, think about the end of the Joker Phillips era, that final 2-10 season, and what a disaster that was. You think about getting beat down by Vanderbilt in what was then Commonwealth Stadium. Nobody in the stands. And it was just the point like, look, this can't go on. And it got the same way at the end for Mark Stoops. And you think about when he came in, he went 2-10, and the building to 5-7, 5-7, 7-5, 7-5, 7-5. You get that win against Mississippi State that kind of flipped the tenure when it was kind of teetering for him. You get the 9-3 season. You go win the 10th game against Penn State in the bowl game. Think about the arc. You have to think about the whole thing. Did it have to happen? Did it need to happen? Yeah. Look at what happened. Just talked about Vanderbilt and Louisville for Joker Phillips. Look what happened. Mark Stoops, 5-5, got a shot at the bowl. Without in Nashville, get beat 45-17. And those 17 points you scored were, it was, meaningless. There wasn't anything happening. You weren't scoring those points with the game on the line. And then 41-0 to Louisville. Whew, shut out at Louisville when they're just as beat up and struggling and limping into the season finale as Kentucky is. Miller Moss is limping around. Hadn't seen a quarterback, beat us on one leg like that. Got to go back to maybe Josh Dobbs of Tennessee when he hobbled around and just continued to make plays against Kentucky. So for it to be that drastic, 41 nothing to Louisville, it wasn't, you weren't playing Georgia in the season finale. Georgia was playing Georgia Tech. It was rivalry week. Kentucky was not playing you know, Georgia or Ohio State or something like that. So 41 nothing to Louisville. That was kind of, and so to think that, you end the season on a dud, trying to run it back. It's not a lot of excitement, not a lot of interest. And then it flips to where you get the news today, and that's what I get for maybe going ahead and turning in, thinking nothing was going to happen. Uh, get the news that you're going to part ways. It's going to be official. Yeah, didn't think Mitch Barnhart would pull the trigger. Did he probably prefer not to do something? Maybe so, but it just got to the point where something had to be done. Um, it's a lot of those two things can be true. You see Cash Daniel on Twitter acknowledging how it was an honor to play for Stoops. Think back to that recruitment, how especially those from Eastern Kentucky like myself, hoping, hey, you can get Cash Daniels, you can get a guy like that to play for Kentucky. I've said the same thing about the Lexington guys, DeKale Crowder, and that Douglas pipeline, and how you can get those guys to stay. And hate to see it not pan out for him. Glad to see Jagger be able to play his whole career at Kentucky. Um, OC struggles when you look at some things that maybe led to the undoing throughout Mark Stoops' tenure. Could never get continuity at offensive coordinator. Shannon Dawson, Neil Brown, uh, Gang, Rich Gangarello, Liam Cohen twice, Bush Hamden, on and on and on. That, you can't talk about the tenure without that. Um, did he did he squash or limit or shackle the OCs? He always said that he didn't, but he always kind of got offenses that he liked that old school cloud of dust. He's a defensive guy. Um, it's just you can't talk about that without all the OC strokes to find continuity there. Um, yeah, comment. Appreciate you, Eddie, being up here. Crack of dawn, pre-crack of dawn. Barnhart was reactive instead of realistic. Missed out on Summerall. Go get Thine or Heartline. At least you'll have an entertaining team. If it doesn't work out, try again in 3 years. Hey, I mean, you know, um, entertaining would be cool to see. A change of style, some offense. Got to get caught up with the NIL situation. Been behind the eight ball, like you said, reactive instead of realistic. There's a lot of truth to that, in my opinion. Um, Hartline has been on staff. We know about his relationship with Cutter Boley and a lot of the calming presence, a lot of the progress with his development. Uh, Still yet to kind of see that consistently from Cutter on the road, but we've seen him make some plays and do some things. You still want to maybe keep him and build around him. You got a lot of things to figure out with that, but there's a lot of truth to that. Eddie, appreciate the comments. Um, Now it's who you think is going to get the job, Stein or Ohio State OC? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting because this carousel is so hot, and Kentucky is kind of late jumping into it now. It's like the pool has already been full. All these coaches going everywhere. All these teams have Kiffin to LSU. Golding now replaces him, and so Kentucky's like, hey, we're jumping in here. Let's see what we're gonna do. Um, the offensive guy will probably be what the fans would prefer. You think back to, a lot of us grew up on mummy and couch slinging it around the yard. Not a lot of great defense, but you had a lot of entertaining football to watch. If you're gonna kind of be at a disadvantage talent wise, where Kentucky recruiting compared to the big dogs in the SEC, and look, if Tennessee complains when they're sixth in the SEC, or sixth, seventh, in the nation. They're still sixth in the SEC recruiting wise. Well, we're even farther down from that. So if we're not going to be able to match them, Jimmy's and Joe's wise, be entertaining. Um, let's see what else. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate y'all hopping in here with us on Believe Network. And again, Cole and I will be continuing to have some more episodes coming. Just want to get on here and talk about the fact that they have parted ways with Mark Stoops. Um, oh, Brian Hartline for Ohio State. Oh, if he that's because his brother is here. I get it, Mike, not Brian. Yeah. And Brian's done a lot of good things up there with them. Hey, look, they finally beat Michigan, so they got that going for him. And he's been a consistently reputable name for a while. It's about the coaching cliche. Coaching does not win championship. Defense doesn't win championship. Analytics proven this. Last 20 national championships, averaging 35. Yeah. And we were still trying to hang on to playing that defensive game. I mean, look, Kentucky won 10-3 at Auburn. I said it on here. Those that listen to the show, that's a classic Mark Stoops game. That's the way he likes to win games. Auburn didn't have an offense that day to speak of at all. They go to Vanderbilt the next week and scored 38 on Pavia, and it was all they could do to beat Auburn the following week after losing the home to us 10-3. Uh, I'm kind of with that too. If you saw the KSR um, live chat, Justin Rowland, friend of this podcast, Nick Roush, Matt Jones, and Adam Luckett. And Justin Rowland, I think, kept saying that I think it's Mullen for him checked a lot of boxes because he's familiar with the SEC. He's been in a similar situation at Mississippi State. He doesn't really do it for me either. It doesn't move the needle for me. I know he's doing pretty well at UNLV, and the thing that got him out at Florida was his comment. It got the Florida fans really ticked off at him was the comment about recruiting. And, Kirby was over there talking about nonstop recruiting, and they had just really dominated Mullen and that Florida team. When you come to Kentucky, you gotta recruit. If not high school recruiting, you gotta really recruit in the portal and do it right. You know, you gotta really work to build Kentucky. So I'm kind of on that same boat. I don't really get excited about the possibility of a Dan Mullen. So who knows? Mitch still going to be here to make the hire. There's talk that maybe his tenure as AD, he might be getting near the end of his time, and is he going to let somebody else do it? Is he going to do it and then move on? So much in the air, so much to dissect in the coming days. Things I've said too, going back to Mark Stoops. You go 7-5, you get to 9-3. After it starts to kind of go back downhill, and you fall to 7-5 again when you have some good teams, and then you get in the press conference and tell us that we're 2 plays away from 9-3. You were. The one time, the first time Vanderbilt beat us at home. Um, hate to call him out. I think Max Harrison was young, corner, got burned on the play. That was a play. You make that play, and you win that game. But Stoops says we're 2 plays away from 9-3. Last year, you said we're 6 inches away from perfection. Well, when you are that close to when you are Kentucky, you got to make those plays. You got to get those 6 inches. You got to make those 2 plays. And your tenure is looked at differently. If there was a 12-team playoff when we're winning 10 games, his tenure is looked at differently. I said the same thing about Tubby Smith. If Tubby Smith gets to one more Final Four, his tenure is looked at differently. Win it all your first year, never get back to a Final Four. If Cal gets to a Final Four in the back half of his tenure, his time is looked at differently. So it's a lot about perception, and the perception of Stoops, kind of when it got to slipping away from him, oh, we're this close, and then it just couldn't quite get it back. James Madison has a good coach. It's funny that you mentioned James, Geico K Man 123. Appreciate the comments. Bob Chesney is his name. I've mentioned on this podcast I'm in a group text with some Tennessee fans. We're all Braves fans in the spring and summer. Then in the fall, of course, it's Kentucky, Tennessee, and we're always talking smack to each other. One of those guys does live up past Roanoke, where Harrisonburg, Virginia area, and he was, texting me, "Who y'all gonna get? Who y'all gonna get?" He said, "Better not to talk too much smack because y'all might try to talk to Bob Chisney." And he's 47, 48 years old. A hot name would be somebody that you might think would be on Kentucky's radar. So it's funny that you mentioned that. Mullen wouldn't be a bad choice. Great OC, did great at MSU, better at Florida than any post-Urban head coach. I just prefer new blood over retread. See, there, I'm with you. I'm with you, and I agree with everything you said about Mullen, but it just doesn't get me hype. If he could come in and win 7, 8 games, I'd be cool. Okay, fine. But I just wouldn't be as excited. It is a retread, and I don't know why in those situations we like to try to go with the unknown instead of maybe a solid guy that could come in and hold it down for I don't know how old Dan Mullen is, stay 5, 6 years, and maybe solidify the program and get it back on more solid ground. But just want to hop on here for a little bit. We're gonna continue to have more episodes. It was a little bit late coming to y'all with this one, but um, Mark Stoops' time at Kentucky has come to an end. We'll talk about that more as well and look to see where Kentucky goes in the future. Well, couldn't build anything at Florida. I don't know about Kentucky. See that's probably the would he be solid? Yes, but that's the reason maybe that he doesn't move the needle. He did his thing at Mississippi State. Remember, he brought them in here, and it was a good game. Dak Prescott. I'm a Cowboys fan. He brought Dak in there. They were top five. Yeah, that Egg Bowl, I think, where Mississippi State and Ole Miss were both top five, like for the first time in the history of Mississippi. So Mullen was part of that. He's been around some good stuff. He's done some good things, and he just doesn't particularly move the needle for me. Um, but it, if he was here and did, I hope he would do well if he ends up being the guy. But I would like to see him go a different direction. Um, but we'll sort all this stuff out. Will Stein is young. I think he can help Cutter. Yeah, if Cutter's going to be here and you're going to build around him, yes, uh, get the most potential out of Cutter because Bush Hamden, we saw the struggles, and we got Tad Russell, Hartline, good recruiters. That's his choice. Hey, he could be, man. He could be. If he wants to, keep step on up and come down here, that would be cool to see too. Some a pulse offensively would be nice. It's been a lot of years where the offense has been, such a struggle. In these past few years, what was it with Hamden? Hadn't even scored 2 touchdowns in forever. So, yeah, Hartline's brother Mike, who was underrated at Kentucky as a quarterback. Mike stayed, toughed it out, had a good junior season, was on pace to have a really good senior season, and got hurt. But you think back to beating South Carolina and Steve Spurrier, it was Hartline and Randall Cobb, and down 28-10, they came back and won. One of those games you never forget. But it's just time now to see where Kentucky will go. Appreciate y'all hopping on here. We'll be back with more episodes. Believe in Kentucky, Believe Network. Subscribe, rate, review. Appreciate y'all watching on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and TikTok and all that good stuff. And we'll see where this search goes. I'm going to hop over here and go to work. And we'll be back with more episodes probably later on this afternoon or tomorrow or something like that. But appreciate y'all sticking with us. And this will be live. It'll be on all our platforms and all that here shortly. So appreciate y'all. Have a good Monday, And let's see where this search takes us. Appreciate what Mark Stoops did do. It is time to move on. Two things can be true, and that's where we are. So, coaching carousel, here comes Kentucky. See y'all next time on Believe in Kentucky.